Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin, I'd love to know where you're joining me from. Drop your city in the comments. And also subscribe to this channel. Now, let me take you into this story. The night my parents asked me to give my pregnant sister $70,000, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I finally understood the kind of family I was born into. I sat in their living room in Dallas, the same room where we used to take Christmas pictures. Mom clutched Lily's hands like a saint comforting a victim. Dad stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, his face set in that disappointed look I knew too well. Lily sat on the couch, one hand resting on her swollen belly, her eyes downcast in fake innocence. The smell of Mom's peach candles filled the air, sweet and sickening. Everything looked warm and perfect on the surface, but underneath, it was all rotting. This was the moment I realized the truth. The real victim in this room wasn't my pregnant sister. It was me, the daughter who built everything from nothing while they cheered for the one who tore my life apart. My name is Haley Carter, and for most of my life, I was the golden daughter. I was the one who did everything right. I graduated from high school with honors, got into a good college, and landed a solid job as a software developer in San Francisco. My parents were so proud. They'd brag about me to their friends at church, at neighborhood barbecues, at family reunions. I was their success story. Every month, I sent money home to help with bills. When their mortgage payments got tight, I stepped in. I paid off nearly half of what they owed. I thought I was being a good daughter. I thought I was doing what family does. Looking back now, I realize I was just funding my own betrayal. But back then, I believed we were the picture of an American middle-class dream family. I believed in us. My younger sister Lily was different. She was the wildflower, the free spirit, the one who could never quite figure things out. She dropped out of college after one semester, claiming it wasn't for her. She bounced from job to job, working at coffee shops, retail stores, never staying anywhere longer than a few months, but everyone loved her. She had this way of lighting up a room with her laugh, her smile, her bubbly energy. Our parents defended every mistake she made. When she got fired for being late too many times, Mom said she was just learning. When she moved back home for the third time, Dad said she was finding herself. I never resented her for it. I thought she just needed more time to grow up. I was patient. I was understanding. I loved my little sister. Then there was Noah Rivers. He came into my life 3 years ago at a company networking event in San Francisco. He was calm, steady, with kind eyes and a smile that made me feel safe. He worked in marketing for a tech startup. We clicked instantly. He supported my long hours at work, never complained when I was stressed, and always knew the right thing to say. He wasn't flashy or dramatic. He was just solid, real. After 6 months, we started talking about the future, marriage, kids. A house somewhere with a yard and big windows. I brought him home to meet my family during Thanksgiving. Everyone adored him. Mom called him a gentleman. Dad said he was a good man. And Lily, she said he was perfect for me. I believed her. For 2 years, everything felt normal. We had Sunday dinners at my parents' house whenever I visited Dallas. We'd sit around the table, laughing and sharing stories. Lily would tease Noah about his terrible jokes. Noah would laugh and fire back with his own. It all felt innocent, warm, like family should be. I never noticed the little things. The way Lily's eyes lingered on him a second too long. The way Noah sometimes looked away too quickly when she walked into the room. The way they'd both grab their phones at the same time and smile at their screens. I didn't see it because I trusted them. I trusted both of them completely. That was my first mistake. It started with small things I couldn't quite explain. One evening, I hugged Noah when he came home and I smelled perfume. Not mine, something floral and sweet. When I asked about it, he said it was probably from a coworker who hugged him goodbye at a meeting. I believed him. Another time, Lily stopped answering my calls. When I asked Mom why, she said Lily was just busy with a new job. I believed that too. Noah started acting distant, claiming work was stressing him out. He'd stay late at the office, come home exhausted, and fall asleep without saying much. I thought he was just going through a rough patch. I made him dinner, rubbed his shoulders, told him it would get better. I was so blind, so stupid. I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. The truth came crashing down on a Tuesday night. Noah was in the shower and his phone buzzed on the nightstand. I wasn't the type to check his phone, but something in my gut told me to look. The screen lit up with a text message. No name, just the letter L. The message read, "She's leaving town next weekend. We'll have the house to ourselves." My hands started shaking. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break through my chest. I opened the thread. Months of messages, flirting, planning, promises. And pictures of them together, my boyfriend, my sister. I dropped the phone like it burned me. The room spun. I couldn't breathe. When Noah came out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, he saw my face and knew. He just knew. Noah tried to lie at first. He said it wasn't what it looked like. He said it was just harmless flirting. But when I shoved the phone in his face, when I screamed at him to tell me the truth, he crumbled. He sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, and told me everything. It started 6 months ago. Lily came to visit me in San Francisco. One night I worked late and they had dinner together. One thing led to another. He said it was a mistake. He said Lily came onto him. He said he tried to stop but couldn't. And then he said the words that shattered me completely. "She's pregnant, Haley. It's mine." The walls closed in. The air disappeared. I felt like I was drowning in my own bedroom. I didn't cry in front of him. I wouldn't give him that. I packed a bag, threw it in my car, and drove to my parents' house in the middle of the night. I thought they'd comfort me. I thought they'd be as angry and disgusted as I was. But when I told them, when I showed them the messages, when I said Lily was pregnant with Noah's baby, they didn't react the way I expected. Mom's face went pale, but then she looked at me with something close to pity. Dad sighed and rubbed his temples. And then Mom said the words I'll never forget. "She's your sister, Haley. People make mistakes." I stared at her in disbelief. Dad nodded slowly. "She's pregnant now. That baby is a blessing in disguise. You need to forgive." I felt like I'd been slapped. I left their house shaking, feeling like an orphan in my own bloodline. I cut everyone off. I moved to a new apartment across town, changed my number, and blocked them all on social media. I threw myself into work, pulling 16-hour days, drowning in code and deadlines. My coworkers noticed I wasn't the same, but no one asked questions. I didn't eat much. I didn't sleep well. I just existed in a fog of pain and anger. Months passed like that. I didn't hear from my parents, from Lily, or from Noah. I thought maybe they'd finally realized what they'd done. I thought maybe they felt guilty, but I was wrong. They weren't feeling guilty. They were just waiting until they needed something from me. The call came on a Thursday evening, 6 months after I'd left. I was sitting in my apartment, staring at my laptop, when my mom's number flashed on my screen. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mom's voice was shaky, desperate. She said Lily's due date was coming soon. She said Noah had left, disappeared without a trace. She said the baby would have nothing. No father, no money, no future. And then Dad got on the line. His voice was firm, commanding, the way it always was when he wanted something. "Haley," he said, "you're successful. You have a good job, good savings. Family helps family. Lily needs $70,000. I sat there in silence, phone pressed to my ear, and felt something cold settle in my chest. They wanted my money. After everything, they wanted my money. I didn't shout. I didn't scream. I just said quietly, "I'll think about it." Then I hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall, and then I opened my laptop and started digging. I went through old emails, old bank statements, old records I'd kept over the years, and I found it. Evidence that years ago, when I was in college, my parents had taken money from my savings account without asking. $5,000. They'd used it to bail Lily out of credit card debt. They never told me. They never paid me back. I'd always wondered where that money went. Now I knew. I kept digging. I found more. Texts between Mom and Lily after I left, mocking me, calling me dramatic. I took screenshots of everything, and then I had an idea. I called my parents' mortgage bank. I asked questions, acted like a concerned family member. The woman on the phone was kind. She told me their house was behind on payments, 3 months overdue. They were facing foreclosure. I asked if there was a way to help. She explained the process. I could buy the debt note if I wanted. I hung up and thought about it for a long time. And then I did it. I used my savings to quietly purchase the debt under a business name. The same parents who always said I owed them everything now owed me, and they didn't even know it. I sat back and smiled for the first time in months, not a happy smile, a cold one. A week later, I called my parents. My voice was calm, almost cheerful. I said I wanted to make things right. I said I missed them. I invited them to dinner at my apartment in San Francisco. I said I'd cook, we'd talk, and we'd figure everything out. Mom cried with relief. Dad said he knew I'd come around. They agreed to come that Saturday. I told them to bring Lily. I wanted to see my sister. I wanted to see the woman who destroyed my life. They didn't question it. They thought they'd won. They thought I was coming back to save them, but they had no idea what was waiting. Saturday evening arrived. I set the table with care. White tablecloth, candles, 3 courses planned. I wore white, a simple dress that made me look calm and elegant. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just cold clarity. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find my parents standing there with Lily between them. She was 8 months pregnant, her belly huge under a loose dress. She looked tired, her eyes puffy. Mom smiled nervously. Dad nodded stiffly. I welcomed them in, hugged Mom lightly, shook Dad's hand. I didn't touch Lily. I just looked at her for a long moment. She couldn't meet my eyes. We sat down to eat. The conversation was awkward at first, but I kept it light. I asked about the baby, about names, about plans. They relaxed. They thought everything was fine. And then I reached under the table and pulled out a folder. I placed the folder on the table, right between the candles. It was labeled Support Plan in neat black letters. Mom's eyes lit up. Dad leaned forward. Lily's hand went to her belly, protective. I opened the folder slowly and turned it toward them. Inside were pages of documents. Bank statements showing the stolen college fund money. Screenshots of texts between Mom and Lily mocking me after I'd left. Messages where Lily called me pathetic, where Mom agreed. And at the very bottom, the most important document, the deed transfer showing that I now own their house. Mom's face went white. Dad's jaw clenched. Lily started crying softly, her hands trembling. I leaned back in my chair and watched them process it. I didn't say a word. I just waited. Finally, Dad spoke. His voice was low, dangerous. "What is this, Haley?" I smiled, calm as glass. "You wanted $70,000, but you already owe me $200,000, the stolen money, the emotional damage, the years I spent being your ATM while you enabled her." I pointed at Lily. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign a confession admitting what you did, all of it, or I'll foreclose on your house within a week." The room went dead silent. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Lily sobbed harder. Dad stared at me like he didn't recognize me. "You can't do this," he said. I pulled out another paper, already signed by me, and slid it across the table. "I already did." Mom started begging. Her voice cracked, desperate. "Haley, please, we're your family. You can't do this to us. Think about the baby. Think about Lily." I turned to my sister. She was crying, mascara running down her face, her hands clutching her belly like it was a shield. "You chose her when she broke me," I said softly. "You stood by her when she slept with my boyfriend. You defended her when she mocked me. You told me to forgive and move on, but you never once asked if I was okay. You never once cared about what it did to me." My voice didn't rise. It stayed calm, cold. "Now you can live with what that choice costs." Dad stood up, his face red with fury, but he didn't have any words. He just stood there, shaking. Lily's sobs filled the room. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "Haley, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. Please don't do this. The baby needs a home, please." I looked at her, this woman who used to be my sister. "You had a home," I said. "You had everything, and you threw it away for a moment of selfishness. That's not my problem anymore." I stood up, smoothed my dress, and walked to the door. "Dinner's over. You have 1 week to sign the papers or lose everything." I opened the door and held it. They sat there, frozen. Finally, Dad grabbed the papers, his hand shaking, and they filed out in silence. Lily was the last to leave. She looked at me one more time, her eyes red and pleading. I closed the door in her face. I stood by the window and watched them walk to their car. Mom was holding Lily up. Dad was stiff, walking like a man who'd been shot. They got in the car and sat there for a long time before driving away. I watched their taillights disappear into the night. And then I turned around, looked at my apartment, at the untouched plates of food on the table, at the folder still sitting there like evidence of a crime. I felt no joy, no satisfaction, just peace. The kind of peace that comes from finally setting a boundary that should have been set years ago. I blew out the candles and sat in the dark, letting the silence wash over me. Days passed. I went back to work. I ate, I slept, I lived. A week later, an envelope arrived. Inside was the signed confession, all of it. Admitting they'd stolen from me, admitting they'd chosen Lily over me, admitting they'd never once considered my pain. At the bottom, Mom had written a note in shaky handwriting. "We're sorry, please forgive us." I folded the paper and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. I didn't call. I just let them sit with it. Another week later, I heard through a distant cousin that Lily had moved out of my parents' house. The foreclosure notice had arrived, and they couldn't afford to keep both of them there. She moved in with some friend I didn't know. The baby was born a few weeks later. I didn't send a card. I didn't call. I just kept living my life. Months went by. I worked. I went to therapy. I started healing. It wasn't fast. It wasn't easy. But slowly I started to feel like myself again. I went on dates. I made new friends. I stopped checking my phone for messages from them. One evening, I was driving home from work and the city lights blurred past my windows. I thought about that night, about the look on their faces when they realized I wasn't going to save them. And I realized something. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel bad. I felt free. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying their weight. I wasn't fixing their mistakes. I was just me, and that was enough. I adopted a rescue dog a few months later, a golden retriever mixed with sad eyes and a gentle soul. I named him Chance. He followed me everywhere, slept at the foot of my bed, and reminded me every day that some things are worth saving. Some things are worth fighting for. I started running in the mornings, Chance at my side, the cool San Francisco air filling my lungs. I felt strong. I felt whole. One evening, I stood by my apartment window with Chance at my feet, watching the sunset reflect off the glass towers around me. The sky was orange and pink, beautiful and warm. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who believed family was everything. And I realized she was wrong. Family isn't everything. Respect is. Loyalty is. Love is. I never heard from my parents again. I heard through the grapevine that they'd moved to a smaller place, that they were struggling. I heard Lily was working 2 jobs, barely making ends meet. I didn't reach out. I didn't offer help. I didn't feel obligated anymore. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered if I'd done the right thing. But then I'd remember the texts, the lies, the way they all looked at me like I was the problem. And I'd remember that sometimes, the only way to heal is to cut out the infection, even if that infection is your own blood. I built a new life. A clean life. One that didn't involve toxic people who only wanted me around when they needed something. Betrayal doesn't destroy you. It introduces you to yourself. I learned that the hard way. I learned that blood doesn't make family. Loyalty does. Character does. Love does. And sometimes the only way to heal is to make the ones who broke you finally feel what you felt. I don't regret what I did. I don't regret taking back what was mine. I don't regret walking away from people who never valued me. Because at the end of the day, I chose myself. I chose my peace. I chose my future. And that's not selfish. That's survival. I stood at my window one last time, Chance curled at my feet, the city glowing in the distance. And I smiled, not because I'd won, but because I was finally free.